The objectives I want to cover today would be hiring and training, the components of your office setup, how to set up the front office, purchasing equipment and instruments, and setting up for surgery. So hiring, it will be just quick overview. I will give you a lot of information. You'll be able to access my PowerPoint presentation, so you can use this information. I'll give you some prices. I'll give you instruments to look, equipment. So I'll go quickly through all this, but just to let you know that you will have all this at your disposition. I always believe that 2 assistants, whether you're a physician cutting and placing and you will need another person, 2 people working on one head is much easier than 1 person doing everything by themselves. If you're a physician, you want to hire 2 assistants. Minimum, in my opinion, would be 2 people cutting and placing, and then grow from there. Medical or aesthetic background. What I mean by aesthetic background, someone who was in either esthetician. We have in our office a lady who used to do jewelry, so she is used to working with tedious work and she enjoys that. Then we just had to build on her medical knowledge and how to clean and sterile procedure. But you look for a combination between knowing about a medical field or being able to work with tedious work. Then you are going to look for someone who is pensioned for tedious work, which I just mentioned with the jewelry and manual dexterity. I found that if someone likes to do crochet, it's not the same thing as cutting and placing grafts, because the movement is different and it's less about precision than just it's a wrist movement versus, it's kind of a little bit different. So just to let you know, crochet, in my opinion, is not enough. Needle point, yes, because it's a smaller point to precisely pick with a needle, but the crochet, in my opinion, is not indication for good dexterity. In interviewing, you want to look for a personality, good personality. Person you're hiring has to be a people person. You work with people who purchase your services. They don't have to come to you. They chose you. They want to feel that this experience is not just fixing something. They want to have a relationship with you. So you want to have staff who is very personable, who likes working with people. You also have work in a team, so the person has to be a team player, but also has to be able to work independently. I did not do that. Good? Okay. I'll take a few minutes to tell you that there's a new research in the field of neurocardiology, and they found that there's about 40,000 nerve cells within the heart that measure electromagnetic field of another heart. So when you work in a proximity, if you have a negative person who is very hyper, it can affect everybody else. It's like broadcasting that feeling. So just be aware when you're sensing a person you're interviewing, trust your heart to tell you whether this will work or not. Someone mentioned you have to find a person who can fit to your office. This explains that on heart level, we know who can fit with us or not, and there's a science behind it. So look for a person who can be a good team player and see whether they fit in your team philosophy. And then you're going to look for someone who has a good hand and eye coordination. The phase 1 training is good. I brought this, I hope everybody can see. The foam I use is a foam that women use to paint their toenails. I cut the bottom, I divide in sections, and I ask someone to cut me sections. So let's say from 2 centimeters, someone has to make me 10 2-millimeter wide pieces. So it gives the opportunity to a person interviewing to see whether they are capable of doing that. Then you're going to ask them questions to think about what they made, so they can show you whether they can think and reflect whether all slivers are even or not. So this will be a good exercise for you and for the person to engage in some kind of testing and in interviewing to see whether they're good for tedious work, and also whether they can monitor themselves and correct their actions. Components of the office setup, there's a front office. If you're moving from another practice that is not elective surgery, then you have to think about that your office has to be set up a little bit differently, because your patients are now using you and choosing. It's like a customer service more oriented than just patient. And so you have a front office consultation room, you'll have a photo room or a photo corner, I'll cover that a little bit later, then surgery or procedure room, and then sterilization room. Front office, the person has to be able to answer phones, or maybe you want to use the same assistant, you may not, but this is something to think about. That person has to be educated about hair loss and hair restoration. People calling will be asking questions. You want your person answering the phone to be able to answer something to show that they're knowledgeable. People won't be just scheduling consultation with you if the person answering the phone is not knowledgeable. Then scheduling consultation, the person has to have a basic in sales and customer service. You can, this is elective surgery, so they are selecting you and shopping around and researching around, so they have to feel received by whoever is answering the phone or scheduling consultation. And then scheduling for surgery and follow-up visits, we usually have a pre-op consultation, so there's a consultation, someone's scheduled for surgery, then we have another 30 minutes to 40 minutes pre-op consultation where we go to paperwork. There's a more bonding that happens with the patient, so when they come for the surgery, they really feel they're coming to a place that is going to take care of them. So the person who's doing your surgery scheduling and follow-up visits, our patients come and see us the day after the surgery, 10 days after when we remove sutures, 4, 8, and 12 months after for follow-up photos. So that someone has to be in charge of that. If someone skips the appointment, you want to make sure that you keep your relationship with the patient. In other surgeries, you may not be needing to follow up, as in hair transplantation. It takes minimum 3 months to 6 months for hair to come and start growing, so you have to monitor that, you have to encourage them, and so there is a certain follow-up schedule that has to be considered. In photography, standardized photography is a must. You have, and I'll show this on the next slide, you have frontal view, oblique, lateral, back tilted, and top down. Then the lighting has to be the same lighting in a closed room, same place. So as consistent as you are with your photos, the better you can show before and after. If you're inconsistent, then you can't show the good before and after because they won't be matching. So people will be distracted with a different background color or position. So the most consistent you are, the better it is. So your lighting has to be the same, the camera has to be the same, and hairstyling, I'll show you, it has to be exposed baldness. You can't have someone comb down and show the hairline. You have to comb your hair back. I always have comb and a spray bottle with water, so I can kind of spray a little bit and comb them back if needed to expose the areas that we want to look at. So these are the views. When you look at someone, the easiest way for me to explain is your chin has to parallel with the ground, so the person is kind of looking straight, oblique, profile, the other oblique, the other profile, back straight, up and down. We have numbers on a wall, so that when a person sits in a chair, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then kind of turn around, and there's a standardized approach to it. Equipment, as I said, I'll cover this quickly. There's a patient chair, assistance stools, ceiling light, side table with cutting stations. Whether you have a microscope or magnifying lights, you will have assigned area for graft dissection. Then you have surgical instruments, and then sterilization equipment. Patient chair, I'm just giving you a starting point to do the research. You're going to look for a narrow back and headrest adjustable. You need a narrow back because if you take a chair with a wide back, assistants cannot stand and reach over the patient because the distance between the chair and the upper body of the assistant has to be sufficient so they can reach in place. If you want a 3 assistant, 2 assistants placing, depending, so this is something to consider. I'm going back to the ceiling light. For me, this is very important. We use this one in particular. It's above this patient's chair. It can move around. It's a cold light. It doesn't create a shadow, so it has a 3 points, so I can see both sides of the head can be lit at the same time. For me, this was more important in placement, and this is what I use. I told you about magnifications. You can adjust this light. Then you have microscopes. They're 7 magnifications. You look at the light, the working distance. I'm giving you several different types. You have great price upstairs. There are microscope at $800. I think Miji is at $800 upstairs. You have Mantis. They're giving you special prices for this workshop. So go and visit and see what you would like and prefer to work on. This afternoon you will have the opportunity to use microscopes, use magnifying glasses in fields and see what works for you, and then you can kind of plan your practice around it. In sterilization, you need ultrasound cleaner, you need autoclave. Once again, I'm just going to giving you some idea how much would that cost you. Instrumentation, you need instruments for donor harvest, for recipient site creation, graft dissection and placement. I'm listing quickly what is needed there. You'll have all this available to you on a PowerPoint. In surgical supply, think about you will need surgical supply, non-surgical supply. In non-surgical, you'll have like comb, shaver, measuring tape. So when you're setting up the office, there's a list of things you have to think about. I'm just giving you pointers to consider. Instrumentation, I'm giving you a list of what we have on our tray. So you have that, you have a starting point. Print it out, go upstairs, look how much would that cost you. Try different instruments. We'll have different instruments downstairs. And so see what you can use for your office. What I tried to accomplish today is cover certain points. Dala will be talking about setting up the surgery room, and I wanted you to gain some kind of overview what would take you to set up your office.